Hey everybody, Professor Smith here. How's it going? So, as we are moving towards the end of our first paper, which is due Monday by the end of the day, I guess end of the evening would be technically correct. So, as we're coming to the end of this, I thought it would be a good idea for us to talk a little bit about conclusions. Conclusions, just like introductions, just like body paragraphs, have a structure, have a formula. And if you follow that formula, if you follow that structure, your conclusions will be pretty alright to maybe even really, really good. Well, hopefully really, really good. But it's better than just writing a few things and ending because you know you need to end your paper. So conclusions are very much like your introductions in the sense that they almost mirror each other. So I'm going to turn over to some documents to help illustrate that point that is this point that I'm trying to make and a few other points. There's going to be 3 documents that I'm posting along with this video that I find to be very beneficial. I'm only going to show one of them with you today, but that's because the 20-page PowerPoint and the 6-page Word document would be a little bit long to go through, so I wanted to highlight some of the most important stuff from that information, but I will post all of it for you. So let's turn over to the document now. So, tips for conclusion, and this is going to be the title of the document as well. So, excuse me. Our introductions, I told you guys and gals that I wanted you to do 3 things. That I wanted you to introduce your topic, that I wanted you to introduce your subject, and that I wanted you to tell me your thesis statement. So if we look at it in this structure, moving from general to specific, like our topic, which might be, as we were talking before, football and youth sports, my subject might be concussion and football for youth sports, and my thesis might be a very specific statement about what I think should happen to youth football for kids. Youth football, so that's why I said excuse me. Regardless, right? So, again, there's this certain structure that with the first sentence, we're starting general, and with each sentence, we're sort of funneling our way down to this very specific statement. So, our conclusions mirror our introductions, not in the sense that it's copy and paste, but in the sense of how they flow. So we start, we start our conclusions with the first sentence, as we'll call it, a thesis reminder. So it's, again, not copy and pasting your thesis, but reiterating the main point of your paper. Right? So now I've come to the conclusion of your paper. What was that main argument that you were trying to make over the course of that those 4 pages? You know, if you're writing a 12-page paper, what was the point? What was the purpose? What was the main idea? You know, you want to reiterate that fact. It's a much better way to start your conclusion rather than in conclusion or in summary. Rather than in conclusion, you can just have a declarative, definitive statement about the significance of your paper, like the main point of it. So for your paper, I don't know, upcoming, you might have something that's about the significance of being mindful of fake news so that you don't fall victim to things like Pizzagate or whatever story that you've so chosen. Right? Excuse me. Right. So that's going to be one sentence. In the next sentence or 2, you're going to try and connect you're going to try and connect your support together. Right? You don't want to just summarize your points. You don't want to just say, in my paper, I had this point and this point. In my paper, this was one point and this was another point. But you might want to start to see, like, how do point A and point B connect to each other, or how do point A, B, and C connect to each other to reiterate or build up to your thesis statement, right? So your first sentence, you're giving me that this is what the paper was about. The next sentence or 2, you're reminding me of why that is the case. And then finally, with another sentence or two, you're going to remind me or tell me why the paper is important, what you want me to do, its significance. I mean, you're really just sort of leaving me with this last note, but you don't want to just write, the end, goodbye, thank you. For me personally, I like to try and see, I like to try and see my papers meaning something in the world, so I would try and write a sentence that had some sort of significance or weight to the reader, that it almost like a call to action, a clarion call, so to speak. So, if we follow the structure, right? Just like I said that your introduction should be relatively short for a 4 to 6 page paper, your conclusion should be relatively similar in size to your introduction, if not even slightly shorter. Thesis reminder, 1 sentence. How you connect your support, 2 sentences. Why your paper is important, another 2 sentences. So at most, really, we're looking at 5 sentences. And as I talked about for your introduction, you'll probably be somewhere between 4 and 6. Here you'll probably be somewhere closer between 4 and 5 sentences. Short, sweet, to the point. All right. So that's the first tip here, is relatively short compared to the length of your paper. So I'm only asking you to write a 4 to 6 page paper. If this was a 10 to 12 page paper, you might have a 6 or 7 sentence conclusion. If this was a 20 page paper, you might have a 2 paragraph conclusion. My master's thesis, which was, I don't remember, 70 something pages, it had a whole section of, I think, 4 or 5 paragraphs as my conclusion. So it really does scale depending on how long your paper is. But for a short paper like we're doing, 4, 5 sentences, at 6, it really has to be justified. It's not that it's terrible or bad or oh my god, but by the time you hit 7, you should really consider what you're doing. Okay. Excuse me. So, also I was mentioning, conclude by linking the last paragraph to the first paragraph. Again, so how does your intro connect to your conclusion? Again, we can sort of see it in this sort of structure, right? How they connect. Conclude with a sentence composed mainly of simple sentences. Simple language can help create an effect of understated drama. So what do I mean by that? It's not to say that you should only write sentences like, I like milk, period. Milk is good, period. But that don't really think about being flowery or elaborating or going really crazy with your words and your sentence structure and your punctuation. Be short, be sweet, be to the point, because simple language, especially at the beginning and end of your paper, carries a lot of weight as we're moving our way out of your paper and back into our daily lives. Don't summarize your essay. That's why it's a good idea to not write in this paper or in conclusion or in summary. Like those sort of sentences prime you to write a summary of what your paper was about. But ask yourself this question. Why would you need to write a summary of your paper when I just read it? I read it. I was attentive. I even annotated and took some notes. So you writing a summary of your paper really doesn't help anybody unless it's somebody who hasn't read your paper and they're looking for a summary at the end. That's the only person it helps. So, as I've said before, but I will mention again, this is a point. Avoid in conclusion, avoid to conclude, avoid in summary, and to sum up. These phrases, they make sense, and especially in an oral conclusion, an oral paper, they make sense. But for reading, it's sort of redundant and silly. I mean, think about it this way. As an academic who's reading your paper, I know that a 4 to 6 page paper is going to have a 1 paragraph conclusion. I'm looking at the last paragraph of your paper. I'm automatically going to assume it's your conclusion. So by saying in conclusion, it's unnecessary. It's unneeded. So I would really avoid it in your papers. Your conclusion concludes your paper. I said it's not a summary. It synthesizes things in your paper, meaning it reminds us how things connect to each other. It brings separate points together. But it's not a place to add new arguments or new content to your paper. You can make comments about like, hey, now that you know this, you should go out and learn this, or we haven't talked about this yet, so go read this. But don't add new facts, don't add new statistics, don't add new quotes from people. You really want to focus on your own words, your own language, and reiterating, reminding people of what you've said and its importance and what they should do with it. As I said before too, like with the last sentence here, right, towards why the paper is important, demonstrate the importance of your idea. Don't be shy. The conclusion offers you a chance to elaborate on the significance of your findings. Introducing possible or new ways of thinking about the research or problem. So, like, if I was writing a if I was writing a report about video games and sports, I might be able to start talking about the significance or expanding on doing more studies about video games in other genres. So you're not introducing new information, you're just referring to insight or creative ways that people who read your paper can then go out and do something. So like, you've done the research on A, and I'm reading A, but now you suggest I go out and do the research on B, so I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go do the research on B, and it kind of starts off this sort of chain reaction. So this is not all of it. I mean, these are the short, nitty-gritty, to the point tips and images that I think really are necessary to help you write a strong conclusion. Again, like your introduction, you need to have a strong understanding of your paper in order to write that conclusion. You really need to have written and understood the body of your paper, or your conclusion will be all over the place. Because again, it's a reminder, it's a reiteration, it's a celebration of everything you've written, and a reminder of what I should do with it and why it's important. I would recommend looking at the PowerPoint as well, and I would also recommend looking at the other Word document that's a little bit longer and has a little bit more of like textbooky type paragraphs to help elaborate on the importance and the structure of a conclusion. So, good luck. I hope you do some great writing this weekend, and I'll be around checking my emails as much as I can. Thanks, guys and gals.